wish. I wish that my channel continues to grow so I can keep making really stupid things.
Happy birthday to me! 1 year ago, I made a silly little video about a cosplay that most people haven't heard of. And I'm so glad I did because I've had a lot of fun this year. And since it's my channel birthday, I decided to do Katy Keene recreations video. And I have a good one for you. Okay, this one, I'm very excited about this. This is the most unhinged outfit I have seen KK in. And I've seen some pretty wild outfits, okay? So before I show you what we're gonna make, let's talk about Katy Keene really quick because I know this is the second, technically third installment of Katy Keene recreations, but last time I didn't tell you about her because I have the short about it, but not everybody's seen the short. And I had to get rid of a lot of stuff, so let me talk about her. Everybody deserves to know about Katy Keene. So how I discovered Katy Keene was through Pinterest. I was just scrolling through Pinterest and I found this ridiculous outfit and I was like, yes, I'm making that for Valentine's Day. It was this lady right here. She turned out so good. I was very happy with this one. Ridiculous, but so cute. And so I saw this anew, it said Katy Keene, obviously, so I'm like, oh, it's Katy Keene. And I knew that Katy Keene was a spin-off from Archie. So after the Valentine's costume, I started to become a little obsessed with Katy Keene because I was seeing more and more of her outfits on Pinterest. So I did some digging. So she was created by somebody named Bill Logan. Wogan? Maybe it's Wogan. I'm gonna say Wogan for the rest of this. And she made her first appearance in a comic called Wilbur, which is the predecessor for Archie, in 1945. And then when Archie came around, she continued to make appearances in Archie until she finally got her own comic in 1949. She had two runs. So the original comic ran from 1949 to 1962. And then she got revived in 1980, and that was a shorter run. It was 1980 to 1985. So the comic wasn't anything groundbreaking. It was a lot like Archie, where she had love interest and she went to school and just like day-to-day life, just a slice of life comic. Where this comic differs and what makes Katy Keene so amazing is that she would have outfits created by readers. Anybody who read the comic could sketch up or, I don't know, write out a design for Katy to wear, and then they would mail it in. And then Wogan and his associates would draw that up. And a lot of times they would come in the form of like paper dolls that you would see in the comic. And then next to each design would have the person's name and sometimes their address, which is a little weird, but different times, I guess. And then sometimes their age also. And I just think that is so cool. And Wogan did admit that he had to like zhuzh up some of the designs to make them more Katy, but I mean, the idea of it was still what the readers sent in. So there's so many of these outfits that I like, which is why I started this Katy Keene recreation series, because I could literally make nothing but Katy Keene recreations, and I would not run out of source material for like ever. There's so much, and it's so good. They're so good, and I can't wait to show you what we're making today. So today, we are going to be making this. I'll read the little caption next to it. Dear readers, Katy receives many unusual designs, some fantastic, some weird, such as this Frankenstein design, which includes a vulture hat, Dracula dress, the handbag is a witch's cauldron, etc. Sent in by one of our faithful readers, our good friend Nielsen Madman Birdwell. Remember the Madman? Katy does. Brr. No idea what that means. I tried to look up Nielsen Madman Birdwell, but nothing popped up. Who knows who that is? Oh. Moving along to patterns in fabric and materials. So we have a lot. Starting with patterns, we're gonna be using the Bodice because I think that's gonna give us the look that we are looking for, because that fits me very well and it's gonna be perfect. We're also gonna be adding some structure to it, some boning on the inside because it's strapless. So gonna want some boning to keep it up and intact. The skirt is just gonna be a circle skirt. We're gonna cut that out in the way you cut out circle skirts, which we'll do later. For the skirt, I have this purple satin again. I originally got this for my Daphne costume, but then found a purple that I liked more. So I have a ton of this, and that's perfect. And then for the flames, I originally planned to maybe airbrush them. Like I was gonna get an airbrush and try my hand with that, or maybe just like paint them on. And then I thought of a very cool idea of taking some chiffon and making flames with that. So we will discuss the technique for that later. The bodice, I have two different things and I don't know which one I'm going to use. I have this, which is very fun and kind of perfect. And I thought I could dry brush it with some black so that I could get black in the creases, but it's a little stiff. And I also need this for gloves. So I don't know how well this is going to work for gloves. Is the only thing I'm worried about with this. And I do like it more than this, which is my backup. And I don't know how well it reads on camera, but it's a little sheer and stretchy, and it's got this green tint to it, a little shiny. It will also work really well if this is what I end up doing. For the bat, we have felt and some faux leather for the wings. We also have this roll of sequins and a bunch of beads, just some black beads of multiple sizes. I'm not entirely sure how I'm doing that yet, but you know, that's normal for me. For the mouth, which I'm really excited about, I don't know. We have more felt of different colors for the mouth that I'll layer. For the teeth, I got this air dry clay, and then I also have a bunch of different varying sizes of red beads that we'll use for like the dripping blood from the mouth, and probably the bat's eyes too. Claws, because she got claws. And then this bit of feather boa for the top of the gloves. I am not making the vulture hat. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry, you guys. I know you saw that photo and you were like, yes, I cannot wait for this vulture hat. I'm very sorry to disappoint you. I don't know how the hell I would make that. I don't want to. Dress is enough, okay? This is a lot for this dress. So calm down, guys. If somebody would like to make me a vulture hat and then send it to me, I will wear it and do a second reveal. It's up to you. It's in your hands now. But before we get to any fun stuff, we have got to make the base of the dress. First thing we have to do is get rid of the sleeves on the bodice. Well, the straps. After we take the straps off, some of the pieces really look very similar. So gone ahead and labeled them with a heat erase marker. So since this fabric is very sheer and also very stretchy and very drapey, it is exactly not the fabric we want except for the look of it. So the way we fix that is by flatlining. So first I cut everything out 3 times of the fashion fabric, the fabric we're going to flatline it to, and then a lining fabric because we're going to bag line the top. So the reasons you might want to flatline something is for this reason, where the fabric you want is just not the fabric you need, and so you'll flatline it against the fabric you do need. Or you want to add more structure to something, you can flatline it. A lot of the historical garments that I've been making have all been flatlined. To flatline, I should tell you the proper way before I tell you my lazy way. The proper way is to flatline it by hand, where you would take a needle and thread and just kind of do these big zigzag stitches up and down the 2 pieces. I don't do that. Maybe it actually would be quicker, but I don't. It just seems like more work. So I very carefully lay the pieces on top of each other and then pin them together, take them over to my sewing machine, put the sewing machine on its longest stitch, and then just stitch around the piece in the seam allowance. And then we'll use this. I noticed on the first line of stitching I did with the flat lining that the top fabric was wanting to shift and kind of pucker. So I went ahead and switched my foot over to a walking foot. If you don't know what it is, it's this little guy right here that has these top feed dogs. And if you didn't know that the little like teeth on the bottom of your sewing machine that like feed the fabric through, those are called feed dogs. I did not know that until somewhat recently. That's a very silly name. Anyways, walking foot has feed dogs on the top so that it like very evenly grabs your fabric and pushes it through. It's super easy to put on. Screwdriver and undo the arm and the foot, take those off, and then you put it on, and then you put this little arm over screw that holds the needle in. It's really simple to install and uninstall when needed. But these are great when you're working with like really slippery fabrics. Walking foot is great. It's a good investment. So now that we've flatlined everything, we are going to use these two pieces as one solid piece now. This is one piece of fabric. Now we need to construct the bodice. We are going to construct the outside fabric and the lining separately, and then we'll put them together. No, then we'll do boning. Okay, yeah, we gotta do boning next. Now that everything is cut out, we need to take all the pieces over to the sewing machine and stitch them up. After they are all sewn together, we take them over to the ironing board, and we want to press all the seams open. And now we have a complete bodice, kind of. Since it's strapless, we want a lot of structure. So we're gonna take the lining layer back over to the sewing machine, and we're gonna run a line of stitching on the outside of each seam, leaving enough room for boning. In this case, I'm using zip ties. So each seam will have 2 lines of boning. After we put in the boning channels, we can sew the outside fabric to the lining. We're going to do that by sewing it at the top, just across the whole top. And then we are going to understitch that. So understitching will help keep the lining layer on the inside and not have it show. And you understitch by opening up your seam and folding your seam allowance over to the lining side. And then you're gonna stitch just a scooch, just a little scooch over from the seam, the little. And you can kind of like pull it open as you sew. Now that we got the boning channels put in, it's time to cut up the boning. Whether you're using synthetic whalebone or zip ties, you'll want to do this the same way. You're going to measure it out, trim the corners, and then you can either use some sandpaper and round out those edges, or you can do what I'm doing and use a little candle and melt the edges, and then I use the plate to kind of round it out. Either way works. But if you're going to do it my way with the candle, make sure that your room is well ventilated because you're burning plastic. So, in fact, for safety reasons, you should do it the first way and not my way. But now we have a fully boned bodice, and we should not have any issues with this falling down. It should stay in place, very structured. And now that the bodice is done, we need to make our circle skirt. Let's do that. Now that we have the base of the bodice put together, it's time to start working on the skirt. Since this is a 50s design, I wanted to go with a big, full circle skirt. Now I have a circle skirt pattern from Charm Patterns, the Stanwick skirt, but I wanted to try to make the circle skirt where you just like fold the fabric and then cut the little like circle out of it, because I've never done that before. So I wanted to give that a try. So the way you do this is you need to find your waist measurement, and since this is a skirt that's gonna attach to the bodice, I got the measurement from the bodice and not my actual waist. And then you take your waist measurement, divide that by 2 times pi. Is that right? There's my notes. And this for me came out to be like 5.1 something. Since again, we're doing it 50 style, I want it to be nice and long, past my knees. So I went with 28 inches, which I kind of maybe should have added just a couple inches more. I think would have been better, but when I laid my fabric down, I realized that there wasn't enough for me to do the cool fold in half, cut the little corner off trick. So instead, since it was so long, I had to take my fabric, lay it flat on the floor, fold it in half, measure out the 28 inches plus doubling the radius that we just came up with, so 10 inches plus a little change, and then another 28 inches to make sure it was long and wide enough. Now that we got it all laid out flat and we know it's wide enough, we need to find our center point and we need to make our little half circle for the waist. So you start in the center and then you mark the 5 inches from the center. That's mine, 5 inches. 5 inches and a little change. And then I was like, oh yeah, you need seam allowance, so you should add seam allowance. But instead of adding seam allowance, I took it away. So instead of doing like 5 and some change, it was more like 5.5 and some change around. So that was smart of me. I should have taken away some and made it be like 4.5-ish. So to measure out the outside circle of your skirt, the full length of it, the easiest way to do this would be to take your measuring tape, put a little pin to hold it in place in your center point, and then take the length that you want your skirt to be plus the radius, and then you can just draw a nice little circle around. I didn't do that because my measuring tape is still downstairs for chainmail purposes, and I guess that's just where it lives now. It's its home, it's downstairs, so I can't bother it. I wanted to sit on the table, but the sun keeps coming in and out of the clouds, so I'm constantly having to futz with my camera. It's very annoying, so that's why I keep moving in the frame. Now we have 2 half circles. I'm gonna go ahead and cut one of the half circles in half and then take those over to the serger and serge the raw edges. I don't need to do anything else to the other edges because those were cut on the selvage, so they'll be fine. And the top of the circle is gonna go into the waist, so I don't need to mess with that one either. After it's serged, I'm gonna sew up the sides. Very simple. You just attach the sides to the front, sew those up, and then sewed up most of the way on the back, leaving a good, I don't know, like 6 inches or so for the zipper, because I'm gonna put in a zipper later. And since some of this skirt is cut out on the bias, we're gonna wanna hang it up. So she is hanging up, and I'm gonna let her hang for like at least a whole day to let that all stretch out, and then I can trim it up. And remember, I cut out the seam allowance instead of adding it, so the skirt was too big. The way I fixed it was just in the side seams. So I took about I think it was like 2 inches out of both sides. So you start at the 2-inch mark, and then you just like kind of go whoop at a nice little gradual slope until you meet up with the edge again. Trim off the excess, and then done. I pressed all my seams open, so now she is just hanging out. She's hanging out. Anyways, I'll see myself out. So now that we have the base of the dress done, we can get started on the fun part. I am very excited about this. So we need to work on the bat and the mouth. We gotta figure out general size and shape. So I'm gonna take myself over to the mirror with a piece of tracing paper and just kind of like press it against myself and do a rough sketch of an outline of a bat, and do the same thing with the mouth, looking at my reference image, of course. Once I have general size and shape, we need to take it back over to the table and refine these. Starting with the bat, pull up different reference images of just bats, trying to figure out a good shape for this guy. After a couple of sketches, I figure him out, draw him again on another piece of paper. And now we got a cute little bat. Look at him, so cute. Now we have a general form of a bat. I struggled with the bones in his wings. To speak of general anatomy for bats and birds, their wings are their arms, right? If we're referencing humans, their wings are their arms. And then these bones that come out into their wings are their fingers. I don't know why I'm explaining that now. Oh, I struggled with his finger bones because of the way the wing is shaped is really weird and not anatomically correct. So I kind of had to like futz with it a bit and figure that out. But I think I like what I have. And then we gotta do the same thing with the mouth. Just kind of drawing general shape till I like what I have, tracing it out again. Now to actually make it. Hold on, I gotta put my hair up. I'm hot. So I decided to start with the mouth because I had more of an idea of how I was gonna do this versus the bat, where I have like some general ideas, but I don't know which one's gonna work. So I will procrastinate on the hard things, start with the thing that I think is gonna be the easiest. The mouth definitely has some like 3D effects to it, or it looks like it does. And then I wanted something for the lips, because it does look like the lips also have like some like coming out a bit. So we're gonna start with some felt. I got a felt base of a darker red in the shape that I need. Now we need the lips. I take a red in a different shade, a brighter red, and I cut out the lips, but I cut them out larger than I actually want them to be because I'm gonna stuff them. So I'm gonna put the lips aside for right now, and now I need to work with the center of the mouth. I decided to layer some orange, red, and then the darker red. In the reference image, you can see a gradient of colors in the mouth that goes out to yellow, or goes into yellow. I didn't have any yellow, but I have orange and red. So we're gonna start with the darker red, and then I'm gonna make another mouth that's a bit smaller out of the brighter red, and then smaller again out of the orange. I'm gonna take those over to the sewing machine, and I'm gonna use a zigzag stitch. And I had to play around and figure out how long and wide I needed this stitch to be, but on my sewing machine, the stitch width was 4 and the stitch length was 0.5. And this gave me some really nice, like close together stitching. And I just stitched all around each shape. So starting with the lips, putting them in place where I need them, I used the darker red, so around the lips. And then the middle brighter red, I did a brighter red that matches that one. And then the orange, the same thing. So the thread matches the inside. And I think it looks really good. Like it came out really nice. Now that we have everything stitched out, we need to get the lips done. So the lips overhang the mouth by a little bit. So I'm gonna line those up, and then I'm gonna hand stitch those down. But I'm gonna leave openings at the top and bottom of the mouth and both sides of the mouth. So once I have it all stitched up, I grab some stuffing that I have laying around that I've used for butt pads, whatever. And I'm gonna shove some stuffing into the mouth with a chopstick. Just stuff it in there. Once it's all nice and stuffed, I can sew up the rest of the mouth. I really surprised myself with this one because it looks exactly like I had in my mind, which does not always happen and does not even happen that often, to be honest. But this came out just exactly how I had pictured it. So now that we had the mouth done, we need to build some teeth. Mold. We need to mold some teeth. I took a ceramics class a couple years ago and it was a lot of fun. And I did some sculpting, but nothing too crazy. I made this really cute jar though, with a little frog on top. I'm really proud of this. Anyways, but that's all the experience I have with working with clay and with sculpting in general. So for the teeth, I just kind of like took a ball of clay, rolled it up, and then kind of rolled it between my hands and then smoothed it out with my fingers, kind of pulling it to get that nice point. And after I got the kind of shape that I wanted for each tooth, so they're big, they're the canines on the top and bottom, they're big fangs, and then the teeth between those. Once I got those all sculpted, I would go through with this sculpting tool and kind of just draw these little indentions in there just to give it some like depth and not have it look so smooth. Once those dry, I want them to look like pearls, is what I have in my mind. So I have a couple of different pearlescent pigments that I've picked up, and I just take a little sponge, and I don't know if this is the proper way to do this. I've never done this before, but it worked. So I made these two teeth first, and they're pretty chunky. Chunky, guys. Big. Thick. So I use these for my little test teeth. And I started out with just doing some of the pearlescent on the clay without anything on it. And I felt like it kind of lost the grooves of the teeth. So then I got some black wash, which is just like a little bit of acrylic black paint and some water. And I just brushed that across. That made it look a little too gray. So then I did some brown wash, which is same thing, a little bit of brown acrylic paint, some water. And I kind of brushed that on. And then with my brush kind of damp, I just touched it into the grooves so that it would leave just a bit of that watered down brown into the grooves, just to make sure it's like really in there. Once that dried, I got out my pearlescent pigments. So I picked up these pearlescent pigments at the art store just because I thought they were really pretty. And I knew I would use them one day. And I wanted these teeth I wanted them to kind of look like pearls. This is Katy we're talking about. Like she's not gory. She's fashion. So we didn't want scary. We want beautiful. We want fashion. We want class. I wanted these teeth to kind of look like pearls, just to class up this scary mouth a little. So I've taken the pearlescent pigment. I have two here. I started with Pearl White. This is a Pearl EX powdered pigment by Jacquard. So I took this with a little sponge and I just dry brushed it on, just kind of burning it in there. This probably would have been better if I had mixed it with a medium and brushed it on, and I don't, maybe it would have looked better and I wouldn't have had to do so many coats. I don't know, I've never done this before, so I remember going to the nail salon and that's how they did it. So I thought, it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. So I started with the pearlescent, brushed that on, and then sealed it with the Pearl EX varnish, high grade of pure high gloss clear. So I actually could have mixed this with this and then put it on there. I wonder if that would look any different. I kind of want to try it. Hold please.
12 seconds later.
Okay, so that actually did work better. So if you want to work with these at home, I suggest mixing these up and creating a nice little paste that you can smear on instead of trying to dry rub it. I ended up doing 3 coats of this pearl white and then just wanted more drama, and so I have this interference violet. It's got like a pink tint to it, so I did another last pass dry brush with that and then did a top coat. Now that the teeth are done and dry, we need to glue them onto the mouth. So I just use my trusty old, where's it at? E6000.
E6000.
He's never done me wrong. He's better than hot glue. So not in drying terms. Like if you want something that's gonna dry like super quick, that's hot glue, but it dries pretty quick. And also things really stick. It's a good adhesive. I feel like hot glue kind of is hit or miss on what it's gonna stick to. Now we gotta let the mouth dry, let the glue dry. But now we have this. I am beyond words with how much I like this. Came out so good. Oh my God, look at this. This is fantastic. Oh, chuffed. Mouth is done. So now that that's done, we can't put the bat off any longer. We gotta work on the bat. I really was pretty unsure and how this was gonna come out. So I started off cutting the bat out of a base layer of felt. Then I decided to cut the wings out of the faux leather that I got and glued that on to the bat wings. My original plan was to bling it all out and use rhinestones and sequins. And then I thought maybe I would use some velvet. And I was like, well, what if I use this for the body and then I can use the leather for the wings and I can make it look a little bit more kind of real? But I could not figure that out to make it work. So instead, I decided to mix the two ideas, and we're gonna bling out the bat and also have some like leather in the wings. So here I have started with the little bat. So we got part of the bat here. Got his eyes in these red beads, but I'm gonna continue with the rhinestoning and we're just gonna cover his whole body except for the wings. So just his head and his whole body is gonna be these black rhinestones. We're gonna bring them out this way to make the arm bone, and then we're also gonna bring lines down to make the finger bones. Little tip when working with E6000 is that it's a serious glue. So work in a well-ventilated space, please, for your health and safety. And then he'll be like this. We'll attach the bottom part of the bat, but we'll leave the top of the wings free. This is gonna take me 850 years to finish, so I'm gonna finish that up. Next thing we need to do is put the flames on this skirt, and I have an idea for that, but I don't know if it'll work, but I think it will. I think it will. So let's go ahead and jump forward to me figuring that out. I went ahead and did a little test run for my flames just to see if it would work, and it actually worked way better than I thought it would. So how I did this was, I remembered I have this really cute Simplicity top that has these flounces. And the way that the flounces work is that they're like a kind of a spiral shape. So I went ahead and drafted up this little design that kind of looks like the hill from Nightmare Before Christmas. And then once you straighten this out, that's how you get all those little ruffly bits. So I cut 2 of each color out and then sew them together on the inside of the hill and then pin them down. But notice how like the red is just like really even, very symmetrical, which is not very flame-like. I'm gonna kind of stagger them a little bit so that the ruffly parts will be not in the same area on either side. And I should be able to kind of like play with it and maybe like curve some of them as I'm sewing it down. The skirt took so much longer than I thought it would take. It looks great though. So I started out by throwing the skirt on the floor, laying it out, and then I did each layer one by one. So I started with the red, placed all the red, pinned all the red, sewed all the red, and then did the same thing for the orange, same thing for the yellow. If I were to do this again, or if I were to give somebody advice on how to do this, I would say pin them all down at the same time and then just sew them all down with one color thread. So the reason I did each layer one by one is because I wanted to color match the thread to the fabric. But I don't think it matters that much. I feel like I could have gone through and just used red for everything and it would have been fine. The amount of time it would have saved me would have been worth it, I think. So if you feel like doing flames, just do them all at the same time. Just sew them all down at once. Also, I don't think I mentioned this is organza. I had originally mentioned a chiffon, but the organza is stiffer. And so it really like kind of holds its own and has more body, where I think the chiffon would have just kind of like laid flat. After I sewed down all the pieces, I went back through and just added bits in between each of the bigger flames, like right here, and then this one, and just these little smaller pieces just to give it more body, more depth. For the hem, I decided to do a bias binding hem, bias hem. For bias binding, you want to cut your fabric on a 45-degree angle, pinned it right sides together, sewed around it, and then went through and trimmed off all of the flame parts that were hanging out, flipped it, understitched it, and then normally for a skirt hem like this, I would go through and hand stitch it on the inside. I didn't feel like putting in that much work. So I just took this, it's just like a glue strip, comes in this little tape. It's a heat adhesive. So I just cut out bits of this and then laid it between the skirt and the hem and just ironed it down, which is good enough for a costume. So now that the whole skirt is put together, it is finally a time to attach the skirt to the bodice. So this, you just put them right sides together and then sew straight down. Easy peasy, nothing crazy there. And now that the whole dress is put together, we need to put in the zipper. I went ahead and installed an invisible zipper. With this fuzzy fabric, it was a little bit of a struggle. And really I should have just put in a regular zipper and just let it be exposed, because who cares, really? But I don't feel like going into how to install an invisible zipper. We can talk about it on a later video. I struggled with this one too much to tell you how to do it. So now the base of our dress is completely done. She's all put together. She has a zipper, she closes. Now we can finally attach the bat and the mouth. I have gone through and hand stitched down the mouth, and then I hand stitched down part of the bat. Somehow got way off course and the wings were like totally curving in, completely wrong. So I undid that and now I've just glued them on a little bit, and I'm gonna go back and finish hand stitching them down, or gluing. I might as well just glue because I've already started. I'm gonna glue them down. But she's done. This is done. This dress is done. Listen, this dress is so stupid, but I really love it. I really love it. Last thing we need to do is to make some gloves. And I actually have a pattern for gloves that I've never used before. It's a charm patterns from their Patreon. So I'm gonna use that. I gotta print it out, cut it out really quick. But these gloves should be really simple. I really think that's it. Are we done? I think we're done. Hold on. Yeah, okay. Let's make some gloves, shall we? These gloves are the most delicate and finicky thing I have ever sewn. Ever. They have a seam allowance of 1/8, which is 3 millimeters. So you have to put tissue under it on your sewing machine so that the sewing machine doesn't like eat the fabric as you start to sew. I sewed this one with the sewing machine and then this one by hand. And honestly, it took a little bit longer, but not that much. And this was way easier to do it by hand. That is just, it's just so small to do on the sewing machine. After I got it all put together, I just like whip stitched the boas on. And in case you were wondering, yes, it is a pain in the ass to sew feathers to anything, I think, probably. They just want to get caught in the thread. Very annoying. And for the claws, I have some disposable gloves that I keep in the house for hair dye reasons. So I put one of those on and then glued the nails on to the gloves, so that way they didn't get stuck to my real fingers. And she's done. And with this, we've come to the last of the project. We are ready for the reveal. Hi! Oh, hi there. It's me. I'm doing the wrap up again. Hi. Okay, can we just talk about this dress for a second? This might be my favorite thing I've ever made. It's so unhinged and so extra and so bizarre. I'm in love with this dress. I'm in love with this dress. The gloves are a pain in the ass to make, but I'm glad I made them. Everything is just so good. Everything is so on point with this stupid costume. The only thing I would change is probably the bat, because it really like is very far away from my body up here. So if I would like to fix it and kind of bring it in so it is a little tighter on my body. More to me needs darts. That needs darts. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I have a few more dark and cursed looks for this spooky season, so stay tuned. And if you would like to support my channel, I have a link down below. If not, that's fine. You can just subscribe and like and watch. I'm okay with that too. Alright, you guys. See you next time. Bye. The barber bought it. I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm gonna lose my mind. Don't put that in the video. It is absurd how many planes fly over my house. I can't walk away from the camera and talk. But just